Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Wednesday night, and you know what that means. The Full Press NHL Weekly Show is back. Myself, Jim Berenger, the voice of Full Press Hockey. No, I did not give myself this nickname. CC Hockley gave me this nickname, and I am joined by Chris Wassel. Every time this happens, he goes to dark, and he goes to blank, and he comes back. But you're watching the Full Press NHL Weekly Show here on Twitter at Full Press NHL. You can find us iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and the whole nine yards. Check out the social media accounts. We're rocking and rolling. Chris, you faded to black and now you're back.
Hey, it's like the Rolling Stones. I want a red door, but I've got to paint it black.
Yeah,
Look, it's just one of those things. Appropriately wearing the most inappropriate black shirt in the world, of
especially
course,
for
because
this, especially for this time of year.
yeah, it's not a good time. Well, nor is it ever a good time of year for injuries, but it just seems like, yep, just when you think a few players are coming back, there's always a few players being subtracted.
Exactly. Always a few players being subtracted. And, it's a big week here. Obviously, you and I touched on the mess that is the Vancouver Canucks on the Full Press NHL podcast. Check that out. Our producer, Ian, was nice enough to get it out quickly for us. But we have to touch on them again because Rick Tocchet at his first game, there was some boo birds, there was a jersey thrown. But for those that haven't listened to the podcast, to live under a rock, in space, out to wherever you've been, obviously the big news in Vancouver, Bruce Boudreau out as the head coach, Rick Tocchet in, and it seems like this has been in the works for a very, very long time,
You mean like about at least 4 weeks?
if not longer.
No, because as we know, we said, on Monday, TNT had that clear and present out clause. I mean, it's in there. I've seen it in black and white in print. 4 weeks notice. So I mean, you figure at least that, add a little time. Carry the one, add a few digits. I mean, this is not, again, to be fair, the Aquilinis have been known to do things like this for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, it's very true that the
Mm-hmm.
Aquilinis have been known to do this. I mean, you go back in the history of this
Mm.
organization, and Chris's phone is ringing, but I have to go through it anyway, so it doesn't matter. You look back what happened 2011 after they went to Stanley Cup final, even during game 7 where there was no energy in the building, the Bruins just dominated and won. And then you see the whole mess with Corey Schneider and Roberto Luongo and just everything about that, and then you bring it to this situation and you let this guy basically go out there knowing you're going to get rid of him. He even said so himself. He said he's like, I knew October 8th I wasn't coming back. I knew I was going to get fired. He's got every day he's got to talk about his future, and it gets to you and it wears on you. And you could clearly see it. The final 2 games he coached, I mean, he was emotional. The fans cheered him. He did good for this team. He turned this team around. The fans embraced it. But for some reason, this management group just didn't want Bruce Boudreau to stick around. And it goes back to, if you didn't want him, why did you keep him through the summer?
Yeah, I mean, why did you make the change in June, July, August, sooner than that even? I mean, why leave the guy hanging for all those months? When you really think about it, what do you think, Jim? About 9 months?
Easily. I mean, it's interesting because yeah, it's about 9 months. He wasn't even there a year. I mean, Taka takes over pretty much the same time that Boudreaux took over last year. And it's just a shame that it's all played out this way because he turned his team around. They were pretty good. Obviously Thatcher Demko was playing really well. JT Miller was on this point streak. But it tells me that management A didn't know what they were doing, and B, there was no plan here.
No. And remember, they went and did the cardinal sin that nobody expected. They brought JT Miller back, and not only did they bring him back, they signed him to this long extension. They don't really solve their look, they had defensive problems even when they were 15 games over 500 under Boudreaux. Let's be
Exactly.
honest, they outscored their problems, which you knew wasn't going to continue. So you would have thought in the summer, hey, let's go and at least address a couple of our minor problems that we can fix with the limited cap space and then see what happens. They didn't fix anything. As a matter of fact, they made it worse. They tried some diversity thing, hired some people, and then fired. Yeah, that was a mess too. I mean, look, the harbinger of the train wreck was there. It wasn't like this was something that came suddenly. We've seen this, from a mile away, and the reality is now, look, you're not really cleaning up the mess. You're just putting lipstick and mascara on this thing and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I mean it starts at the top. I mean obviously ownership's never going to change, but Patrick Alvin, and you have Jim Rutherford in there who has stated publicly he may should have not come back after he took time away from Pittsburgh, and he's inherited bad contracts. Jim Benning's signed some guys that probably shouldn't have been signed, traded for some guys. And if you look at the list of players on this team, obviously, the Cardinalson was JT Miller. The Brock Besser extension, yes, it's only 3 years, so it's not a big deal. You probably can unload that one. When your captain doesn't want to play for you and basically says, yeah, the 7 year deal that you offered me is not good enough, he wants out, that's a problem. Luke Schen's definitely going to be gone. Andre Kuzmenko is a wild card in all this because they're going to try to re-sign him, and if they don't, they're going to have to try to trade him. Besser's still, available. If you talk to a lot of people, is Connor Garland going to get bought out? Like they're up and down this roster. There's just, the Canucks' philosophy was they didn't want to take on bad contracts, but they still have bad contracts that nobody wants.
Right. And the final insult is they now owe $7.5 million to their current and former coaching staff.
And by the way, we didn't mention it. Along with Rick Tocchet joining the Canucks,
Mm.
Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar are going to be there. As our buddy Braden said, that he's not going to be on Avs broadcast anymore. Always great to chime in, Braden. So I mean, look, it's ridiculous what happened in Vancouver because it's such a shame for a guy who's so respected around the league, who's won wherever he's pretty much gone, and to have that happen to him is just an organizational disaster, and it's such disrespectful because I've never seen this in the time I've watched hockey.
It's pretty rare. I mean, yeah, I've seen a couple of these situations play out, but not nowhere near this extended. There's no reason for it. I think that's the biggest problem of all. There's no reason for this.
No, zero reason for it. And to me, like the Canucks were, I don't want to say they were, a class organization, but they knew how to handle their business when Brian Burke was there.
Yeah. No, you're at, yeah. Wow. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're saying something like this, but it's true because it is.
It is true. I mean, look, you can go through the past decade of guys that were mistreated or situations mishandled, things that happened and didn't happen, and you just don't know. And Jim Rutherford's a guy that we go back to his Pittsburgh days. He's very aggressive, but again, the way the salary cap is these days, and the way everybody's hamstrung, he really can't make the aggressive move right now
Yeah.
that he likes to do.
Yeah. How aggressive can you be when at least a dozen teams have basically said we're capped out?
You
And
can't be
that's
that aggressive.
yeah, you can't because most of those 12 teams are probably the teams that you could be selling your assets to. As they kind of need to because I don't know, they were like what 15 points out of a playoff spot.
They were in a similar position last year. They went on that run, but they still weren't good enough.
No.
And they fell short, and they became in the middle of mediocrity, and they still are. And yeah, look, they as we said Monday, they handled Andre Kuzmenko right, and they may lose him. They didn't handle Niels Hoglander right, and he's down in
No.
the AHL. But again, he's still young. Again, I'm not throwing the jury is still out on a lot of players in the NHL. The book's still out. You take a guy, just a hard left real quick just to get this, I'll get it back on the rails real quick. But I interviewed a guy,
Mm-hmm.
Trent Frederick, years ago in Vermont with the Bruins. He was talking about the style he plays, and you're finally seeing it now with him. But it took time for him to develop, and the roster wasn't there. You
Mm-hmm.
see that. Hoglander was thrown into a situation where they expected him to perform right away, and he wasn't ready. They thought he was going to be Elias Pettersson 2.0. There's only so
Mm.
many guys that can jump in the league right away and do what they do, and the draft picks and the developing and everything. I mean, the Canucks have to look themselves in the mirror and say, okay, what's the philosophy going forward? Do we tear it down and build around these guys? Or are
Mm.
we just going to stay in the same cycle of being mediocre and hope something clicks eventually to get us back into the playoffs? And oh, by the way, the caveat is Elias Pettersson can sign an extension July 1, but there's rumblings he may or may not.
Yeah, it's not automatic. By the way, this is kind of like the futility of futility. So you figured they've been mediocre for basically 7 of the last 8 years.
Oof.
So they had that 1 year with Travis Green where they somehow managed to wiggle their way into the second round.
That was the bubble, right?
That was the bubble year.
That was bubble Demko.
That was bubble. Yeah, that literally was bubble. Yeah, that was when Demko made his grand appearance, and that's been it. And look, when you have that many problems and you don't fix them, they don't go away, like we said on Monday, and it's just not going to get any better.
No, I mean, the one thing you will see is probably this team be better defensively, of course. I mean,
It can't be any worse.
they can't be any worse. So they have to be better defensively for sure. Obviously Taka got the first win, but it was touch and go early.
Like Chicago.
Chicago was up 2-1, and then Kuzmenko scores his second. They start to pull away, but again there was a jersey thrown. There were boo birds out. I mean, this team, it's gonna take time. Yeah, they won. Okay, it's great. Like it's when San Luis. Oh, okay, they won, but the situation in Montreal and the situation in Vancouver is completely different. Kent Hughes and Gordon basically came out and said, "We're doing what we did in New York. Like we're gonna tear this thing down. Like,
Yep,
and we're gonna start from. We're gonna have these guys in mind. This is who we're gonna build around." Vancouver has come out with no plan.
they never had one.
No. Fly by night.
Hey, I mean, we could get into a number of Russian tantras here. I mean, fly by night, distant early warning. I mean,
Clear and present danger.
clear and present danger, subdivisions. You name it, and that's what's sobering about all this.
It, it,
Where do you? I mean, obviously they had to start somewhere.
okay, so if I'm in the if let's take for instance, say we're in the war room there. All right,
Mm-hmm.
I know Horvat's not coming back. But they
Got
know they want to. They know they want three assets at least. Two, obviously a player that can play now, first round pick, and something equivalent to a first round pick.
yeah.
You got to try to find a team that, and you have to pull the Timo Mile route and not be, oh, okay, well you're going to trade for him, but you can't talk to him about an extension.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know teams want, if they're going to trade for him, they're going to want to know
They
if
want to
he's going to
talk.
sign. They want to talk, i.e., a team like the Boston Bruins. Okay, he's been linked there. I think
New
if they
York.
did do it, it'd be a summer move, knowing who and who isn't coming back.
It makes the most sense.
But you have Colorado who's in desperate need of a center. Carolina needs help, but Carolina has never been a rental team,
They don't
so
rent.
they don't rent. So I mean, I could see Boston doing it and giving him an extension, like we saw with Hampus Lindholm. I really could. But again, that's factoring that Patrice Bergeron and
Bergeron,
Krejci
Pasternak.
are not coming back,
Yeah, and you got
and
you
you
got to
still
make
got to
room
pay
for Pasternak.
Pasternak. Yeah, you still need money for Pasternak. So
So there's that. So there's Boston. there's the Rangers who they've been linked to in a few places. The Rangers would then have to like move heaven earth. They'd probably have to
They would have
defer.
to trade. They would
They,
have to send Vincent Trocek back to Vancouver.
yeah, yeah, they would. Somebody would have to go back significant, and they'd still have to do, as I like to call it, the third and a third and a third thing.
Yeah.
Nobody
I
likes
mean,
to
I
hear
think
it, but
Colorado makes the most sense.
and even Colorado, well, they
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 can.
they can still pull it off because what they can do, and I still think they're doing this. LTIR Landeskog until the first round of the playoffs.
We talked about it. We've said this.
Yep.
We've said this before. There will go to the Nikita Kucherov route with him and put him on LTIR for the rest of the season and say, welcome back in the playoffs,
Yep.
and there's your second line center. Now, I would be intrigued if Ron Francis does something in Seattle and goes after Horvat because he's a player they could use too.
I wouldn't be surprised. They really need experience scoring from the center position. I mean, with all due respect to Yanni Gord.
Yeah, but Yanni Gourde's a third line center.
But he always was.
He always was. He always was a third line center. That's why that line in Tampa was so good.
Man, must be nice, right?
We used to have the Devils used to have that.
Oh yeah.
Devils used to have that.
Oh, I remember that. Those were the days.
Those were the
But
days.
but all joking aside, there's a lot of teams that want Bo Horvat. It's just a question of, does it happen before March 3rd or does it happen in the summer? And to say one way or the other, we just don't know yet.
We don't know. I mean, look, we know, like I said, Luke Shen is definitely a goner. I think, Tampa or Boston, teams that need depth defensemen who's had experience, can play in all situations, defensive defenseman. I think I think one of those two teams. Tampa makes sense. Boston makes sense. You never can have too many defensemen. Brock Besser is a very interesting player because you're not sure, where he's going to go. Is he going to go at the deadline? Is that a summer move? I mean, I've heard, a lot of, maybe we could see more summer moves at this deadline than before because you could use, teams could use a third team to get involved here. Andrei Kuzmenko to me is the wild card in all of this because he's having a great season, 31 goals, tied with Horvat for the lead in the team. He's playing well. I know they're talking extension, but I feel like they only really have another month to really figure out where this is going before they could pull the trigger. And I don't know if teams would be interested in him.
Yeah, obviously the big questions with Kuzmenko is, what is he going to be as a player, and they don't know. I understand that they don't know, but man.
But when this guy scores 31 goals in his first
he,
season,
he plays it at a different gear, Jim.
Yeah.
And they really don't. It's kind of funny sometimes because when you watch him on the ice, he kind of looks around and like, where's everybody?
Not here.
He's pretty. Look, if you put I don't know if you, acceleration wise, he's up there with Connor McDavid. Speed wise, no one is. No one is up to guys like, for lack of a better word, Adam Fox, etc. Overall speed, but those first few strides are like, damn.
That's a great question, by the way, that Braden put up.
Man, you know what? You figure, all right, so, doing the rough math, and this is where it gets bad. So you figure, Jim, 43 points or so in 46, 47 games. He's he's going to be 27 next week. Man.
What's his current cap hit?
His current cap hit's $950.
Oh, he's easily 253, maybe more.
He could
get
get 30
goal scorer for 30 goal scorer.
He's right up there. So he's gonna get at least 4.
Probably on a 2-3 year deal.
That would be actually a win for the Canucks at this point.
That's if he stays with the Canucks.
That's an if. I mean, look, It didn't. There's nothing automatic about any of this.
No.
Man, it's almost like the next team. There's nothing automatic about them either.
Oh, great segue because the New York Islanders are making headlines, and for the wrong reasons. Okay, I know everybody loved this team. I loved them too. I was a big fan of theirs when they went back to back Stanley Cup, back to back conference finals. It was in Tampa 6 and then 7.
Bubble,
The bubble, the COVID season. Last year they
bubble.
had COVID, injuries, all this stuff. They put a nice run together at the end. They really didn't
Road
do much,
trip.
and they really haven't done much since then, because General Manager Lou Lamoriello is stuck in his ways, and people will see me on Twitter. Yes, you can at me, Jim Berenger. Do it. I don't really care,
Do it.
because
Do it.
I've said this for a long time. Okay, one, he was a figurehead in Toronto. He didn't make all the decisions. It was a committee with Shanahan and Dubas.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted stability in that organization before they took the next step. Two, he is yet to learn how to handle a salary cap world and is continuously making the mistakes he made after the New Jersey Devils went to the Stanley Cup final in 2012, giving out bad contracts to aging players.
With that no trade clause thing.
Yeah, with the no trade clause thing. Now look, the Dobson deal and the Romanoff deal, very good. Those are fine contracts. Nice
Dobson
bridge deals.
especially.
Dobson's especially because he's going to explode. He's going to be a great player. The Palmieri contract, no good. No good. I mean, Parisi's is only a 1 year deal at the league minimum. That's fine, but they have yet to add goal scoring. They have no goal scoring. Defensively, okay, they could improve a little bit, but they're pretty good there. Goaltending, they have a great tandem. Offensively, they have not added, and it was the same problem in New Jersey.
Damn it, Dobson's out again.
Injury ninja.
Yeah, again. Jeez. And that too. I mean, look right now. I mean, for example, no, Dobson's out again tonight. I wouldn't be shocked that they just hold him out until past the All-Star break.
At this point,
it's a minor injury anyway, so it's nothing major, or at least that's what we're being told, which of course is something normal in the tri-state area. We're kind of used to that by now.
Yep.
But again, the problems with the Islanders are just, the thing is when the definition of insanity comes to mind. You're trying to solve the same thing, but repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. And that's kind of what's happened. Here's the goofy part. So at first, the Islanders actually were outscoring their problems, at least early in the season. 2 point.
2 point.
Now, basically, since January 3rd, it's like a weird demented wall, Jim. They have not done squat. They really haven't. The only game they won was that Montreal game where they went up 2-0 and then just stopped.
And they hung on because of their goaltending.
So there's lots of things going on. Look, Matthew Barzal has played with about 20 different people since the start of 2023. Where it feels that way.
But let's be honest, he got paid. Barzal? I mean, I'm trying to word this nicely as possible because I'm a fan of his, but he's not worth the money that he got because he's just a playmaker and not a goal scorer. But when he can shoot the puck, he's a goal scorer. And they just don't have the complementary players to play with him anymore because they're all getting old. Lou Lamoriello came out today, tried to take some heat off of Lambert because there's a lot of heat on him. And Lou said there's no excuses. It's totally on him. That's my responsibility to make us the best we possibly can, to make whatever changes we need. That's not on the coaching staff. That's not on the players. I take responsibility. But yet, the same patterns are happening. I don't care who they're linked to. Lou
Mm-hmm.
Lamoriello has a certain number in mind, and he doesn't go past it.
And that's a problem in this day and age. This
Am
is
I
a
wrong about
different.
that?
No. There's the bridge too far, and that is Lou Lamoriello in a nutshell. Look, every time I have to ever talk to the guy, that is the instant impression you get with most things when it comes to players and contracts and etc. There is a line, and he does not cross it. And unfortunately, what worked pre-salary cap just does not work in this era when you have this firm line that you're not going to go past. Oh, I'm not going to, trade a first round pick, or I'm not going to mortgage this, if you stay status quo in this league, especially now, and look, and Braden and a lot of people have said the same thing. You can't do this in the Metropolitan Division.
No,
We'll
you
get arguments on which division is the toughest, but by far the most cutthroat division is the Metropolitan Division.
especially when a team like New Jersey's on the rise and playing the way they're playing. The
Jersey.
Rangers aren't going away. Carolina's not going away. Oh yeah, by the way, Pittsburgh and Washington are still sticking around. Oh, and Columbus and Philly aren't bad because they're starting to play. I mean, they're at the bottom, but they're gonna give you a tough out every now and then. The division is tough, and you can't just okay. I'm gonna rely on defense and goaltending and hope I get to the playoffs because that's what we've done in the past. In those playoff runs, they still
Mm-hmm.
weren't scoring.
No, I mean for them, 3 goals a game was a big deal. I remember that. That was how they got
Yeah,
past the first 2 rounds. I think they averaged exactly 3 goals a game.
they
It
got
was pretty funny.
they played teams that they were good against, i.e., Pittsburgh. They were able to get like they just drive Pittsburgh. They give Pittsburgh fits.
Yep.
Boston they got through, and that was the year Rask was not 100%. But they didn't make the necessary changes because like, oh, okay, we can get there again. You're now playing an 82 game season. Like you're hearing the excuses, oh, injuries, injury. At what point is the team just not good enough?
It's not built for a normal regular season.
Right. It's like, okay, well, we built for COVID and a shortened season so we can get in the playoffs. But they're not getting younger. And they're not giving their
Yep.
guys like the Kiefer Bellows, the Wallstroms enough looks.
Mm-hmm.
They need to do something. They were always, yeah, and I never believed this for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I respect the hell out of some of these insiders. I really do. When it comes to Lou Lamoriello, you and I are on the inside. I never believed for 1 minute he was going to Long Island, Johnny Gaudreau. I never believed it. I knew Lou was never going to pay him. It was never going to happen.
Right. He wasn't going to make that offer.
He was never going to make that offer. Tarasenko probably not going to the island either because he's just not going to make that offer. He's in the final year of his contract. Guess what? I know you don't want to make a change, but at some point, and I know it brought stability back to this franchise, at some point are we going to say maybe firing Barry Trotz wasn't the right idea and maybe it wasn't Barry Trotz's fault this team isn't performing?
It's looking more and more that way. It really is. That's the reality. And you don't make the personnel moves necessary to compete. And that's it. I mean, they're on the outside looking in now.
Yeah, they are because teams are charging. Pittsburgh's not going away. Washington's not going away. Florida's charging. Buffalo's coming up. And obviously you have New Jersey and Carolina at the top. And I know we got to start wrapping up here, but I just want to touch on one thing. What Boston is doing is historic. Okay, we have not seen anything like this since 76, 77, the Montreal Canadiens. Okay, those guys won the Stanley Cup. I know it was a different league, less teams. What Boston is doing at home on the road is historic. They don't win a Stanley Cup this year, it will be a major, major disappointment.
And yet I still won't be sad.
I know you won't.
Yes, I'm that cold, I know. But all right, think about this. All right, so 132 points was the gold standard set in 76-77 by some team named Montreal with a coach by the name of Scotty Bowman.
That team was
So,
loaded.
so all right, for those that do not know, that was not the only year where they were ridiculous, because in the 2 years, the book-ended years, the only reason why they didn't win more was because they had 11. They had 11 ties. They won 58 and 59 the year before and the year after. So basically,
Ridiculous.
this was a team that had 125 or more points in 3 straight years.
And they won the cup those
Four
three
straight
years.
years. Yeah, all
Yeah,
three
they won the
years.
cup four
Okay.
straight years.
So let's put it this way. His start, all right, they have what they call like a simple rating system, Jim, through Hockey Reference. And I talked to the guys there. They were at a 2.5 that year. So, okay. They're like, oh, you can't compare errors. Oh, now you can.
Oh
In,
yeah.
in its own way. So we asked, and for perspective, Boston right now is at 1.7.
Okay.
That's not bad.
No, not bad.
But it's still not the freaking 76-77 Montreal Canadiens. And that's what's crazy. What's crazier yet is more that Boston is doing it in this era.
It really is. It really is. Considering, remember it was survive till everybody gets back,
Survive till everyone gets back. They're going to tread water,
and they're
and
gonna
then they're
tread
going to make
water,
this run.
and they're gonna make this run. No, we're just gonna do it from the
We,
beginning. Line like Braden said, Linus Olmark shooting at a brick wall. Jeremy Swayman, they're taking home hardware this year. Defensively, Hampus Lindholm's been excellent with Charlie McAvoy.
yep.
Up front, four lines that are
Watch
rolling.
this. Quick numbers of odds. Okay, so through Sports Interaction and a few other sites, here we go. Jennings Trophy. Boston is a minus 938.
They're gonna run away with it.
There is a level of absurd, and then there's that number. Mind you, we're not even 50 games into the season for Boston.
No.
And President's, and Ian's not far out. The President's Trophy was like minus 3 something, and it's minus 3,000 on MGM, by the way.
Why even bother?
All right, let's put it this way. Linus Olmark went from off the board at the start of the season for the Vezina Trophy. His low mark is about minus 150. Ridiculous. He is as much as a minus 325 favorite to win the Vezina. He is even listed as a contender in some bookies for the Hart Trophy. Mind you, he has 25 wins in 29 games. 25 wins in 29 games. Let that sink in for a second. That is an insane percentage. His quality start percentage is up there. The goals saved above average isn't up there because he started a little less than some of the, other goalies in the league that have to play 600 million games. Omar doesn't have to. He has guys like Pasternak, Bergeron. You go on and on. They have depth. They have balance that they did not have before. And that was sorely missing. They have a coach that wants to kick ass and chew bubble gum.
That's it. Yes. And he's all out of bubble gum.
Bubble gum.
That's it.
And
yo, R.I.P. Roddy Piper, by the way.
And of course, my favorite video game character, Duke Nukem.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. What Boston is doing, historic. I don't care where they're playing, Antarctica, the moon, Mars. It doesn't matter. They're gonna win. Book it now. If, like I said, if they don't win, it's a big time disappointment for me. For a lot of people, I think. And again, we'll see what they do because they're linked to some players. But I don't know if you mess with the status quo right now. I think I've heard Craig Button saying that the year he was there in Dallas when they won, they really didn't do anything because the belief in that team and the locker room and everything, you're rolling and you really don't want to upset the apple.
With it?
You can't. Look, that's a question for Boston. That's a question for New Jersey. That's a question for a lot of teams. Do you screw up or mess up something that's working right now? We'll find out come the trade deadline.
Ooh, and that's another added variable to how many moves will actually happen come March 3rd,
Yeah,
and we
it's
don't
true.
know.
We really don't know. But this is what we want to get through because some Canucks, some Islanders, some Bruins,
Some more.
uh, some more. But we're running short on time. So quick little show tonight. Full Press Hockey Weekly here. Full Press NHL Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, fullpresshockey.com. You can
Mm-hmm.
get it iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been Jim Berenger, Chris Wassel, Ian behind the scenes doing his thing. We'll see you again next week.